one, we are live.
Welcome, everybody, back here on Segal Talk. It's a Friday noon in New York City and Midtown Manhattan, a slightly cooler day after the tropical heats we had in the last days. And we are back on Segal Talks with voices from around the world on theater, on performance, and artists who try to create meaning and get meaning from working in this field we are all in and that we like. So I welcome all our listeners also, and thank HowlRound for hosting us. We just had yesterday a wonderful panel on puppetry, global puppetry, but also on American puppetry and on the shifting field that we all live in. And so I thought it was quite a beautiful reminder of how big this field really is. And Wednesday we heard from Bangkok, from Thailand, BIPAM, an organization of 10, 11 countries of Southeast Asia, and how they are dealing with the time of change, the time of Corona, and what's happening now and what will be coming up. And now we come to another country, slightly more well-known, perhaps, France, and we had many French artists with us, and we're so thrilled to have with us today Marine Bachelot Nguyen and Penda Diouf. Thank you both for being with us. We have a great relation here in New York, also with the French Cultural Services. Nicole and Laurent, fantastic colleagues, and have been supportive of our talks, and as have been so many others like Emmanuel de Montgazon, people who we worked so closely with. They are both based normally in Lille. This is a town, if I'm right, about an hour and a half south of Paris. Just became soccer champion in front of Paris Saint-Germain, a very big deal, unexpected. And they're also famous for La Piscine, a famous museum where it used to be a swimming pool, a public pool, if I understand right. And now it has a fantastic galleries where you see the contours of the sculptures reflecting in the water. So bonjour, where are you both? Penda, where are you? Are you in Paris and Lille?
Bonjour, Frank. Hi. I am now in Tunis for residency. I'm hosted by the French Institute in Tunis for a month.
Oh, fantastic! So you are not in Europe at the moment. You just got there.
I will be returning to France at the beginning of July.
So you must be in quarantine still.
Yeah. I still have four days until
4 days.
I go outside. Yeah.
Amazing. So and Marine, where are you?
I am in Caen, Normandy, in Comédie de Caen, the theater, and I will have much time in Normandy in this period because I applied for the direction of a theater in Rouen, and I have a lot of real meetings to do and see people and see shows. So that's very nice.
Wow, it's a very significant theater, right? It's one of the state theaters.
Yes, it's a Centre dramatique national in Rouen. So yes, we are many artists to apply, and we have to make this concourse.
So how does it feel as a young female director, artistic director, artist? I think we just lost Marine, at least on my screen. Penda, maybe we go to you right away. I might read a little bit for our audience, about you and your work. Penda is an author, playwright, and librettist, and she's based in Lille, as we said. And together with Anthony Thibault, she co-founded a label, Jeunes Textes en Liberté, so a label not for music but for books, plays. Is that right?
For theater, yeah.
For theater, yeah. And she's an associate artistic at the Centre Dramatique National de Valence, which is led by Marc Lainé. And frequently she gives also writing workshops and shares her experience. And her play La Grande Ourse, the Big Bear, Is that right?
Yes.
A she-bear is published by Quartett Editions, while her play Pistes was published in 2001 in France, but also in Germany. It has been translated and staged by Aristide Tarnagda, who is a good friend of us, who was at the Segal Center for Pen World Voices, our literary festival. Is such a fantastic worker, and also created that important festival. And it was shown, your work, at the Festival d'Automne. Our good friend Antje Oegel also said, you know, it's time for you to speak to Penda, and you invited Marine to come and with us. So Penda, tell us a little bit, how was last year? Were you in Lille during the time of Corona?
I was not far from Lille because I was on a writing residency in the north of France, I think 30 kilometers from Lille.
Mm-hmm.
And when the quarantine started, I left the residency to return home in Aubervilliers. Aubervilliers is in the suburb of Paris. And this period was very hard, but I think everybody shares the same feeling about it. It was very difficult for many things. The first one, maybe as a playwright, we don't have a lot of help from the state. So I think I had 6 months without any payment last year. So for this thing, it was a little bit difficult. And maybe there was a lot of, I don't know how to say, but maybe there was a lot of police violence during the first lockdown. As I told you, I used to live in Aubervilliers, and it's a very working class area in France. And I heard a lot of police sirens. And when we had to go outside, we had a permit, and there was a lot of abuse during that period. I remember a black mother, she was living in Aubervilliers too, and she was tasée with a taser.
Mm-hmm. Taser.
Yeah, because
Taser.
Thank you. Because she was getting food for a child.
Mm-hmm.
Another example, a young teenager I know, his name is Amin, is mentally handicapped, and he was beaten by the police. So for all these things, it was very hard. In addition to the shock of the coronavirus, and I think we have been a lot infantilized a lot by the government, and the distance between the police and the population is increasing. Mm-hmm. So for these things, it was difficult. And maybe the theaters were closed, and there were a lot of proposition on Zoom, but maybe too much. Mm-hmm. And I led writing workshops on Zoom. At the beginning, I didn't feel like it because I wanted to share this thing with people, but we couldn't. So at the end, people were very happy because maybe it was a space for them to escape during this difficult period. And we were very alone. So maybe they needed it. So I continued, I pursued. And of course, even if it was great, it was great during this time, this specific time. I prefer to do things and share, of course, with other people. Mm. So yeah, it was very
quite a complicated time. Yeah, we experienced also very strongly that moment of Black Lives Matter, where what already has been there has over centuries, you know, but all of a sudden Corona crystallized everything. It was visible like under a microscope, or as Richard Schechner said, you know, like a nuclear reactor is melting, but the roof is open and you look inside in real time. So that must have been a tough experience for you going back in your this is the town you grew up, right?
Oh, I grew up in Dijon.
Oh, in Dijon? Mm-hmm.
I used to live in Aubervilliers during 13 years.
13 years.
And I left. The first, my first decision after the quarantine was to move.
To move and to live.
I moved to Lille.
We also heard, from Romania and also other places, where people said that people who don't, whatever, are part of minorities, they rather looked at the ones who carry the virus, almost like a medieval thinking, of, people who don't look like us, or like the majority, are the ones who brought that in. So completely wrong. It's racist and it's just, but also a reality. Did the Black Lives Matter movement, did that somehow helped that discussion? Do you feel it had an influence for you and for your work and in that Aubervilliers in the town?
I think the sad murder of George Floyd had a big influence in France, but all over the world, because there were big demonstrations to fight racism and say that Black Lives Matter. And in France, Adama Traoré died in the same condition as George Floyd 5 years ago. And his sister, Assa Traoré, has been demanding justice even since, and she's still being harassed by the police and, of course, by the state. So it was a real wake up for all of us, because it doesn't only happen in the United States, but also in France. And during the demonstrations, there were a lot of people and young people, and that gave me hope for the future.
France, in a way, such a great country, also has a great history of theater, yet is also struggling, with its past and with global problems of, climate change, of racism, of the hate against women, and these are global issues. Do you feel, for you in this time, did something change? You said you couldn't work, you were not paid. You experienced Aubervilliers very closely. Something, if you would have been in Paris with your friends, it would not have been experienced maybe as immediately. Do you feel this changed your work, changed your thinking?
I don't know. Because I think we are still in this crisis, so it's difficult to have enough distance to speak really about it. But I can say maybe that I didn't discover, because I knew it already, but now it's relevant for me that we have to pay more attention to our environment, to this particular place of people in the world in relation with animals, with plants, with the trees. And maybe the fiction will be inspired, and maybe mine too, by all these theories about a change of paradigm. There is a lot of talk in France about the basket fiction, and about that fiction as about about the thing that fiction has privileged, the hunter, the battle against with weapons against mammoth. But as neglected maybe the basket, which is a very useful, not weapon, but thing to feed people and to bring food home. And
basket, you mean to collect into like a little basket, where instead of hunting and killing, you know, the agriculture and the ideas of,
yes.
Yeah.
So maybe our way to write will be impacted by all these theories and all the thinking about the crisis and the environment.
Marine, we will welcome back, and we will come back to you in a second. Penda, one more question. Tell us a little bit, what is your work all about? Why do you work with Aristide, you know, and that was a French director, which one would think, you know, so what do you do?
I think I like to write theater because it's a way to speak to people all over the world, and I think art is the best way to join us, like dancing or painting or music. And it was important for me to work with people from the African continent and with Aristide Tarnagda to show that stereotypes about Africa are always the same: poverty, misery, illness, and things like that. And I wanted to show that we could do tell our stories. And with Pistes, with Aristide, I'm telling about the genocide in Namibia during the German colonization, and there's not so much people who know this story. So I wanted to put some light about this fact, this terrible fact that the first concentration camps were in Africa, and a lot of people died in very awful ways, and nobody knows about it and nobody speaks about it. So it was important for me to write it and to work with someone from the continent.
So La Grande Ourse is about Namibia, and is that...
Pistes is about Namibia,
okay.
and about my childhood as a Black woman in France. And La Grande Ourse is more about, it's a fiction, but it can be very real because it's about a woman. She has a paper, a candy paper, and it downs on the floor. It put down on the floor, and she has to go to the police station. She stays there a very long time, and it's very awful and stressful. So to get more energy and to find herself, she began a transformation, and she transformed,
metamorphosed.
Thank you, in a she bear.
Incredible idea, and I think it's someone we should really see here, and hopefully it will make its way to the US. Marine, tell us, we talked just with Penda also, but that this is a time of awakening, a time of change. You are a highly respected as a director, also a playwright, and you are applying as a young woman also for a position right now in France. How is this moment? What are your ideas? What do you want to do different? What is your vision?
Yes, I'm sorry for the electric cut. It happens in theater. Yes, I heard Penda and I agree with her. We have to change our way of doing, and it's quite difficult because now in France, from a few weeks, theater are reopened. People can come, and there is some kind of frenzy, and we enter in this new frenzy that is similar to to the one before the lockdown, even worse. And it's to slow down is something difficult to do because there is also a very big concurrence between artists, many young and emergent artists, women artists, Black, Asian, and Arabic artists are structurally discriminated by this system. And the capitalist system from after the crisis would be very, very tough and hard. So I think there is something to balance and to be very attentive and to all the phenomenon that affect the society and the hearts, our backgrounds, and we are also in all this. I think I was hearing Penda and I was listening to her, and I am now trying to write about the period of the lockdown, the violence of the police being in the lockdown, the change of paradigm that affected us. It's really hard to write about this period. And well, what changed? For example, my next project, because it's a strategy also to get out from this crisis. I want to work on a woman, a Vietnamese woman who lives now in France. She's more than 80 years old, and she went through the Vietnam War. She received the Agent Orange on her body, and she lost her first child in the jungle in the Vietnam War, and she is now making a trial process against Monsanto, Dow Chemicals, and other petrochemical agro-industrial societies, American societies. And well, I want to focus on her, write something on her, because she is at the intersection of anti-imperialist, ecological, feminist fights. And I want to carry a story in school rooms, in classrooms, in theaters. I think we realized with this crisis that it was important to make theater also outside of the theaters. We need to have theater outside, at the open air, in classrooms, in libraries, in bibliothèques, and so on. I think we need to be very adaptive to this new context, to meet new publics, new people, and to be very careful with this adaptability, agility, not to answer to the capitalist system, because we have to adapt, but not at all prices, you know. I could say that. And with theater, writing, plays, and shows that reflect the reality, try to think about it, but also open spaces for imagination, dreams, political utopias, and so on. I would say that.
Yeah, we do read a lot in the news about, you know, that complex relationship of the French police now to its own citizens, how brutally it looked. Also that there was an attempt by the government, you know, that any video, any photo would be forbidden. You couldn't publish it. It has been taken back. Did you, where were you during the lockdown? And did you see, were you an eyewitness of people, your family or friends, were they affected by that? Or you saw the demonstrations, you were part of them?
Is it, yeah. Well, during the lockdown, I was already in Lille, and I had the chance to have trees and birds in the outside. I didn't have a garden, but I couldn't see the nature. And well, when it was in May or June, yes, I returned and I came back in the street in demonstrations against this police violence. So it was very important to see all these people in the street, despite the strait of the virus. And we were in the street to demonstrate. But, well, to demonstrate against the police is always very, very, very present to repress. But from many, many years, it's just like that. In my hometown, Rennes, it was a real laboratory for the government to repress the demonstrations. So we have yes, we are used to this police violence. And well, as for me, Asian people, Asian young boys are, I think, less targeted by the police. If I think to Black and Arabic people, which are really the targets. The discretion and invisibility of Asian people is also something I work on and write on. But I would say, of course, I am concerned, and I had to. In last November, I was about to create a new play, which is called Akila, le tissu d'Antigone, and which that talks a lot about the friends of today, about terrorism and police violence, because it's a story of Akila, and she's a young girl from high school, and after a terrorist attempt in France, there is a minute of silence in a high school, and during this silence minute, she puts a hijab on a white hijab on her head, and then she defies the law of the high school and of the Republic, and we. And then we discover that she's the sister of a terrorist, of the terrorist that committed, one of the terrorists that committed the last attempt. And this is a rewriting of the myth of Antigone. She will be the only one from her family to go to the funeral of her brother, and she will keep this hijab on her head in her high school, which is really forbidden by the French law. Yeah. And so many things will happen in her high school. So that's a way for me to use a myth to talk about the issues of the French Republic. One of her other brother is died a few years ago in a police crime. He was killed by the police. So this young girl carries the story of her brother and tries to understand what happened to her brother. So this show would be showed to the real public in next October, but we had the chance to finish the rehearsals and to play it twice in a high school with pupils. So it was actually really interesting.
Instead of the theater, which is normally now you in the high school, where basically is the environment of the play, and what seems to be like an emergency solution actually perhaps is closer to the spirit of the play, and the setting might be much more thought-provoking. Penda, do you think for your generation, as well for Marie, will it be like a PG? Will it be like a pandemic generation? Is this imprint of this year something you will carry through life? Is that strong, or do you think it was an interruption and we will go on back to where we were and keep on fighting? It actually was already there before.
I think it's this crisis was like a mirror, and everything that happens now was already here years ago, but we didn't really pay attention on it. But now it's funny, because during the first quarantine, we had a lot of meetings about le monde d'après, the world of after Corona. what we are going to do in theater, maybe to think differently the touring for the plays, or to think about the environment, or about the scenography of the plays, and about the relationship between big structures, big theaters, and small companies. And as Marine said, everything went very, very quickly after the quarantine, and we didn't get the time to do everything, to think about it. And I think the thing we need now is time to think about what happened to us, what trauma happened for us, because it was like a trauma for everybody, and to really try to find another way to live, because we are going in a very fast in this capitalism, and this capitalism is very cruel. And I think people who were a little bit in difficulties, now they are surviving. And I am speaking about artists, but a lot of other people in France or in the world are in this situation of surviving. And I don't know. I hope we will. It's like a lesson, and I hope we will listen to it.
Mm-hmm. It is true. As far as I know, France had one of the hardest lockdowns of all European countries, perhaps Italy till the end of last year, but you continue to have a lockdown till 6 o'clock, I think, for months that people had to stay at home. And so it is surprising that on one hand it was so rigid, and then all of a sudden it opens up, and the idea is, let's pretend nothing happened. We should go on in that way. You both talked about the police violence, actually also which surfaced in Britain. This murder of the woman. Now it became clear actually a policeman was her killer. It was and a demonstration during the time of Corona was really dissolved with extreme violence. And the idea of theater and the idea of art, the idea of beauty, of course, is to find solutions. They are not violent. They are actually the opposite in a way to the ideas of police or military or weapons, as you said, the hunter against the other. Does it work? Or what do you believe in? What works? Or what's your experience? Is that perhaps the play in the high school, is that working better than bringing the high school kid to the theater? Or Penda, what are there new strategies? Are there new ideas you guys are exploring in face of what we say, this capitalism that is cruel and which we have seen is also not fully working, especially also here in the US. So what are strategies? Are you finding new ideas, new solutions you could help us to share, and would be good for us to know?
With the label Jeunes Textes en Liberté that we do with Anthony Thibault, who is a director. I think it's been going on for 7 years now. And from the beginning, we have been thinking to get out of the theaters, to meet people, those who are not used to it or who are not at ease to enter in a theater. So we have been organizing readings for 7 years in different places outside of theaters. It can be in parks, in libraries, in bookshops, in women's associations. Last year, we had an appointment to do it in a hairdress salon for Afro Hair, because we stay there for a very long time. So it was the perfect place. It's for me the perfect place to listen to stories and to meet the author afterwards. So yeah, we thought about it since a long time, for a long time, but we are happy that now theaters want to do this and want to develop it. But I think it's not enough. We have to work on our representation, to think about who is telling stories, who has the money to tell stories, who is on stage, and for which role, if it's a stereotype or not. If you always take a Black woman to do a prostitute on stage, or the wife of a migrant, or we don't want that anymore. So I think we have a lot of different ways to work on it, to have a better, not a more inclusive theater, and more space for people, particularly people who we don't hear about, to express themselves and to listen to their stories, and to welcome people in theater. Welcome. Yeah, important.
Yes, I really agree with Penda. We have to change our ways to do, but as well as Penda, in my theater company that exists from 15 years, we always did some shows in theaters on the stage, but also théâtre paysage, landscape theater, also things in libraries, parks, classrooms, and so on, because contemporary writing that speak about contemporary world need to meet the people everywhere, and so I think we need to invent circulations between theaters, stages, and the outside, and also to invent, I think, moments of conviviality. For example, I remember that one of my best souvenirs was a karaoke that was proposed by a theater, because one of my last shows is about Vietnamese, Russian, French family memories, and in one moment of the show we do a karaoke. We are in a karaoke in Vietnam, and the world is entering this, and the big story is entering this karaoke. And the theater in Choisy-le-Roi in Paris, they proposed to do a karaoke, and many people came for this evening of karaoke. Because they wanted to sing. There was a group of migrant people, and this was a very, very nice moment with drinks, with singing in every language, not so much English, but French, Farsi, Arabic, and Creole, and so many Portuguese, so many Brazilian, so many languages, and just with songs that carried nostalgia and from the native country. And I think we have to invent with our shows other things, have a drink, make a concert, share a meal, where everybody can bring something. And we have to reinvent ways of sharing, because you know, the artist background are quite yes, on themselves. So we really have to reopen things, and to go in schools, but also where there are whole people that have a lot of memories of the world, the different yes, all the different stories. And when I work as well in a hospital or in prison, or in where there are retired people, I can listen and hear a lot of stories that are really rich to feed my writing work. Sorry.
Yeah, so we really a call to reinvent and to start new front. Penda, as as a question, perhaps you, as an honest answer, you were with Aristide Tarnagda at the Avignon Festival. Doesn't get much better. You were in the hair salon where you did the reading of the Afro hair. What worked better? How did you feel in these moments when your work was done?
After Avignon?
No, how do you compare both experiences? Like on the big stage of a festival on world class, and then you were in a hair salon. Tell us about the experience of it. Is it what felt closer to your work, or was it very different, or this actually was the same? I would be curious to know.
It's different because when you rehearse, you are alone, and it's a monologue. So I was alone on stage, and the rehearsals, it was easy for me because only Aristide and his assistant were there. So it was not so much people. I was not so impressed because there were only 2 or 3. But for the premiere at Théâtre Jean Villard in Vitry, I think there were 250 people, and it was full. I'm not an actress. It was my first time I went on stage to defend and to say my text. And yeah, it was a very different feeling. In the same time, I was really eaten by the fear. And in the other way, I was supported by the crowd, and everybody was very careful to listen to the words and to, with a lot of respect, they listened the story about the genocide, and I felt very touched about this, about how people were touched by this story, even if they are very far from this story, even if they are not Black. It was I was very happy about that because it worked for me like it spoke for me about universalism, because in France, unfortunately, this universalism is ethnical, because it's white at 95%, and it's important, I think, to show that universalism is not about the color of skin, but if the story is rich, the characters are complex, it can talk to everybody and everybody can identify. And people when I did it on the stage were very, I think they identified, and yeah, it was a great, it was like a small victory for me. Yeah. Fantastic. So it was really different because yeah, I didn't expect so much energy from the people in the theater.
And the understanding was the same as in the hair salon when you did your work. Was that the same understanding?
Sometimes I was surprised because people laughed at moment I didn't expect. And I couldn't expect that because it was rehearsals and I was alone with my text. But to share it with people, you can find new subtleties or new senses that you didn't imagine when you wrote it. For that, it was very interesting.
Yeah. You both represent, in a way, also a new generation of theater makers, creators in France. How was your journey? When did you discover that theater was meaningful for you in your life? What was the first things you saw? And then how was your journey? Maybe, Marine, we start with you.
My journey towards theater?
Yeah.
Well, I think I always wanted to write, and I wanted to write novels, I think, when I was little. And then I discovered that literature was sometimes cut from the society. And I discovered the political theater. and I wrote a kind of memory about Dario Fo and Frank Aramé theater, which in the 70s they engaged themselves to make theater also out of the theaters, out of the institution, to go in factories, in streets, yes. And well, I think I studied at the university political theater. I was very struck by Rwanda 94, which was a very long show about the genocide in Rwanda. Well, I think I realized that I wanted to write political theater, that I wanted to experiment. And at that time, in the 90s, mid-90s, the beginning of, political theater had a bad reputation. It was considered low, not artistic at all. And I wanted to prove that we can invent aesthetics, be creative with political ideas. So I think I decided to do this kind of mission, and yes, that was evident for me that if I wanted my writing to touch people, theater was the ideal art for that. Books are great, but I think actors, actresses can move people with the words that I wrote, and I like this collective art because we can invent also this utopia of collective.
And you got into a theater. There was like a competition, or you wrote a play, it was staged by friends, or how did it start?
It started that I was in high school. I was making a kind of a theater atelier, and I was on stage, amateur. I realized that I was better at writing or at directing. And when I was at the university, I made an atelier, a workshop with Roland Fischer, who was a playwright. And it helped me a lot to assume that I wanted to write. And this Roland Fischer, who was also a director of a company, he created a group of young writers. So he invited me and some other friends of mine. And we were in this group of young writers, and we had the chance to be able to read and to criticize our text, and to be in kind of laboratory that help us to assume ourselves as writers, as playwrights, and also with first command and first text were staged. And then when with 5 other writers, young writers, so we created a theater company in Red, which is called the Lumière d'août, Light of August, reference to the novel of Faulkner. And that was the space where I could assume myself being a stage director. I could try to professionalize myself also in direction. I did things before in university, but when we created our own theater company, it was easier for me to jump into it.
Jump into Nguyen, of course, is also a great theater in France, and Luciel runs it, who was here, and there was this great history project with Patrick Boucheron. So, but Penda, how was your journey? How did you end up in Avignon now in Tunis? How did that happen?
I think it took a long time for me. I discovered theater very late. I think I was more than 20. And I worked for 10 years as a librarian. I managed 4 libraries. during a long time. And I quit 2 years ago to devote myself more to writing and to my artistic practice. And I think when I was a student, I was working in a theater at MC 93 in Bobigny, and I'm very happy because they support me a lot now. And I began there as a student, so I was working only during the evening to welcome people. And I discovered it was a nice job because I had the opportunity to see many plays from all over the world, and to see them many times if I wanted to. So it was very great for that. And I discovered, I think, my first big emotion was La Cerisée from Chekhov. And it was, the director was Jean-René Lemoine, and all people on stage were Black people, Black actors, and it was amazing, not only because they were only Black, but because, the way he showed the Cerisée was very different of what I was thinking about, and I felt very, I don't know, I think I didn't decide it at this moment, but I think it helped me to push the door and to try to write again and again. I began to write, I was 18, I think. And I think I began to write because I'm very sensitive to situations of injustice. We spoke a lot about it. And it makes me very angry. And writing allows me to put this anger at a distance. And also, as Marine said, to share emotions with people I don't know. And I think I write theater. I like to write a lot of things. I like to write theaters too, because there are 2 times, and I think it corresponds to a part of my personality. The first time is a writing time where I'm quite solitary, even if I'm always not far from people, because I want to write with people and about the world. So I don't want to be far, but I need some space to write. That's why I'm here in Tunisia. And the second time is when you share with a team, with an audience, what you were writing. And it corresponds to a more social aspect of my personality. And finally, I think theater is alive, and every night you have a new performance. It's not static like novel. I really like novel, and I would like to write one day. But to see that everything can change every day is a thing I really like, because it's a collaborative work.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's quite powerful. Also, say you were angry, you know, and this is a good motivation. I think I like angry voices. Also, music, you know, I think the punk and post-punk music, you know, angry songs are touching us. And so take us to that moment when you were 18. What was the first thing you wrote about, and why did you write it? How did it happen that you said, I think I have to write it down? What happened? What did you write about?
Yeah, it's a story about a family. They are stuck in a room, and nobody goes outside of this room except the father. And the father takes some, I don't know how to say, prospectus.
Yeah, some publicity material. Yeah.
Yeah.
Leaflets. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. From outside, and brings it at home. And the only way for the family to have a contact with outside is the little window they have. But the father doesn't want them to see outside what happens. So he puts some things on it so they can't see outside. And I think I wrote it because I think I was dealing with something very, an oppression situation, and I wanted to read of it. And I wrote this play about a family, but it can be about a society, or about it's about domination and oppression and patriarchat.
Yeah, and you were already a librarian at that time? You studied?
No, I was 18, so I was still a student. I studied French literature. Yeah.
French literature. Amazing. And a question to both of you, and maybe to Marine first. France is in a way also a superpower of theater, you know, like England, Poland, Japan, and many of Germany. In a way, there's this big history of plays, you know, the Racines, Corneille, Molière, and then Nuit, Sartre, everybody, you know, how do you guys deal with that? Do you feel this is a time to reinvent the stories new in the way as you adapt the myth? Are these plays meaningful? To you, or what you from the history of the country, or do you feel it's a time now where something new emerges, where it actually what is called for is a creation of things that have not been there?
Well, I think we have to promote contemporary theater and the classical from tomorrow. Well, we at school we have to study Molière, Corneille, Racine, but yeah, as for now they are not so much on the stage. I think it's really interesting to go and visit them from time to time. I like Molière because under the comedy there are some tragedies, tragic situation, problem of social class, problem of very, very cruel mechanics. But well, my priority as a director is not to to work on Molière or Corneille or Racine. We can be inspired by their poetry. But I think French directors, I think they also look on Shakespeare, on Chekhov when they need to to. Well, I believe in contemporary writing. I need to have a dialogue with Eschyle, with Sophocles, with Shakespeare. I don't know, but yes, we need to be kind of a new wave, not to be cut from. We have the heritage of this great literature, but we have to invent the classical literature, theater literature of tomorrow. I would say this.
Penda, you as a librarian, you know, also talk about, is the weight heavy, or do you see yourself not really affected by it? Do you see yourself in a tradition of that writing, and how do you look at it?
I think it's a very nice heritage, and it's good to know. Of course, it's good to listen to it and to read it. And it's funny because with Marine we were in a jury 2 months ago for a national school of theater, and I was very surprised and very upset because there was a lot of scenes from the students about classical theater, and a lot with violence against women. And I was very shocked because I didn't imagine that there was so much violence against women in our theater repertoire, yeah. And I was really shocked about it. But so it's good to know, and it's good to have our own way, and to be inspired by this theater, but by other things too, because I think I'm inspired by the theater, but by a lot of other things, les contes, poetry, novels, sometimes cinema, and I read a lot of new plays now inspired by series.
Yeah,
say.
TV series.
TV series, yeah. So yeah, it's the base is always the same. It's a conflict between people. It's an argue between people, and I think now we can use it and as people from today.
Who do you follow? Whose work has influenced you, like from theater makers, filmmakers, or novelists? What in your field of vision? What is of significance? What's important to you guys, Marina?
Well, it's a difficult question for me. Yes, I told about the antiques. Greek antiques are important models for me, as the tragedy deals with political issues that go through the cité. I think, yes, it's important for me. I like in theater writers, I like Michel Vinavert. Was his way of dealing with dialogues, with everyday life dialogues, which become music and very entrelaced. Well, I can quote some plays, but it won't be very significant. I always try to, well, to absorb what I read, and I also like a lot to invent languages from documentary pieces and make this work of things that are not literature, to bring them into literature, into theater. Well, I don't have now many ideas. I would let Penda talk because she has a lot of references, and maybe I talk later.
Yeah.
Maybe the first one is you, Marina.
No, not at all.
You are very inspiring, really.
You too.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe to the work of women like Toni Morrison, or Leonora Miano, Marine Diaye, because they are writing novels, but they are writing theater too. And the narration, the way to enter in their work is narration, like in novels. So I like it because I think I came in to the theater with the same way, because I'm not from this environment. I'm not an actress, but I came at the theater with the novels. So maybe this woman, I like Wajdi Mouawad too, because I think he has a lot of narrations in his play, and I really like to read them. And maybe in painting, I discovered last year a painter. His name is Augustin Lesage, and I really like his paintings. And he has a funny story because he was a miner, and when he was under the ground, yeah, he heard a voice, and the voice said to him to buy something to paint, and he began to paint, and he became a real famous painter in France. So I really like his life and his paintings too. It's heteroclite.
Yeah. Marine. Good. So, and then maybe, so I mean, you talked already, but what are your projects? What are you working on, or what would you like to do? Both of you, what's coming up in your pipeline of engagements?
Yes, well, in July I will present Circulation Capitale in Avignon, Festival Avignon.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. No, it's off, but we are very happy and it's a particular show for me. I am on stage with two actors, and that's a work about family memories, France, Vietnam, Russia. And it's a very personal and collective work. We tried to sorry, I'm quite tired.
No, you both speak so beautifully.
No, not at all. Well, we went through our family stories with trying to question them in resonance with the big story and the big ideologies, Christianism, colonialism, capitalism and communism. And yeah, that's a quite emotional and political show, very, very, very sensitive, very personal. So we are very happy there are a lot of work about languages, about songs inside. So we are very happy to be able to show it. And for my other project, I would say this work, this writing about Trantonia, this Vietnamese woman I talked about earlier. And in the next years, I would like to create a show that will be called Boat People, and I will collect testimonies from Vietnamese and Cambodian communities that arrived in France after 75. Yeah, I want to tell about these stories of Asian communities that are quite discreet or invisibilized in France, and about the emergence of the humanitarian actions in Europe and in France, with all the ambiguities of this humanitarianism. And well, that's a project, and I would also like to direct one of Penda plays in the next years. I don't know which plays. I have an idea, but we are talking about this too. I would be very happy to contribute to the circulation of Penda's writing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marine. For me, maybe I can speak about a project we have together with Marine, because Marine invited me to a collective project with another author. Her name is Karima El Karaz. And Marine asked us to write a text that we read together about our ancestors. And all three of us have a link with colonization, even if we didn't experience it directly. And three of us have a link with the language of origin too. Sometimes because we speak it, and sometimes because we don't speak them at all. I don't speak my origin language, and yeah, it's a nice performance we do, and we will have one, I think, at the beginning of July, before we go to Avignon. Yeah, and after that. I have two projects with Théâtre National de Strasbourg, and I am very happy to work with them during this summer and in September. I'm in Tunisia to work to write a play, and I have also a reading in Berlin at Deutsches Theater with Kevin Riedberger, who is an author and a director. And it's a beautiful story because he read my two plays, La Grande Ourse, Die große Berinde, and Pistes, and he liked them. And he had started a text about the presence of soldiers of French colonies in the Rhineland between the two world wars. and he offered me to complete the text, to add something, to cross it, or to cross out. Sorry, to cross out if if some parts that didn't suit me. And he trusted me, and I thought it was a very generous gesture from him. So there is a reading in Berlin, and after that I have a partnership with MC93 in Bobigny, and the end is this July. Pistes is touring in France and in Germany. I do a lot of readings in Germany now. And there's a podcast on France Culture about theater and about police violence, and it will be available at the end of June. And I think that's it. And I'm working on an opera in Australia. In Australia, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Wow, there are a lot of work ahead of you, and I hope, Marine, you will get the job. And
yes, I hope
and
so.
after this talk, we fully endorse you, and you can say that and quote it as a voice of change. Yeah, what did you say?
Thank you. No, I was remembering that next weekend I'll be in Berlin too for a reading of my play Les Ombres et lèvres, Shadows and Lips, which will be in a queer theater anthology, because it's a play I wrote about LGBT movement in Vietnam, contemporary Vietnam. And well, it was translated into German. So yeah, I also been in Germany. And thank you very much for this talk. I'm really sorry for the French electric cuts in theaters. It happens.
So the theater, it went out in your theater, the electricity went out. That's incredible. And yeah, so really, that's quite an update, from France, and to hear from both of you, and Penda, from you and your work. Incredible story also, working for 10 years in that library, writing early on and now moving to theater. And so it's hopefully one day and soon you will also come here. And I like that symbol, what you said, you're under the earth, under the ground, not on the surface, not on the light, and you hear a voice, and the voice tells you to create art. And it happens. So it is something important, and I think perhaps also in this time of Corona, something to think about for all of us, also for the listeners. Write your poem and do your painting, and write something down, or play and make music. It is our lives that we have, and when we listen to artists, it is really about us and what it means to us in our lives. So thank you all really for being there. We had another week of Segal Talks here at the Segal Center. We had talk number 150 this week, which is an incredible milestone. I think we will slowly come to an end with the focus of Corona, but ultimately continuing these conversations, the global conversations. We also think we will get perhaps more involved in the fabric of theater here in New York, with work in the parks. As you both also have said, it was important to hear that it is of importance to be outside and to create a festival, which we do not have. Nothing compared to a Avignon festival, and who knows what this time will bring to us. Next week we continue. We will have again artists from around the world. We're going to have Gerald Thomas, who's from Brazil, the US, but also partly from Germany, with some Russian family. And then we will have Abhishek Tapar from India, who lives in Amsterdam, who just gave his presentation at the Ruhrfestspiele in Germany, and the great Sybil Kempson, and the Seven Daughters of Eve. That's her company. She's a creative director, actor, artist, and writer. And we're going to hear what she's up to. She lives now upstate New York, and creates also great ceremonies, which she has done inside museums, solstices and other things. So we continue to listen to voices that come out of the theater. And really, it was very impressive what you both said today. It was very important for us to hear as messages, and we all hope that this time of Corona will bring a change in what has become visible, and the brutality of police, or a state what you both are closer to than others, to that it becomes a bit more on the minds of everybody that this has to change. It needs to change. It cannot stay how it was. And we shall never just think to go back how it was before. It was already not working. So, and theater is a place that can highlight that and can help us to imagine a new world, as you both do in your work. So thank you all. Thanks for HowlRound again for hosting us. And of course, for you, the listeners, for taking time out of your busy lives. So much is online all of a sudden, and so much good things also. So it means a lot to us that you are staying with us. And I hope it's something meaningful also for you in there and for your own life, and to make sense out of the time you live in. It helped me to make sense, at least in this hour. It felt me closer to the world. So thank you again. And I wish I was in Tunis too, and could jump in the ocean, but quarantine wouldn't let me do it. And or to have some oysters in the Normandy, but it will happen one day. Thank you so much again, really. Thank you. It's a great privilege to have both of you with us. Bye-bye.